I'm your host Slim bin Muhammad Rafi, and here is your YouTube channel Zamir Universal. I'm back to you once again with a very important and touching subject at the moment, which I think when you see the fires in Los Angeles, New York, and now spreading up to Massachusetts, so you can see the wrath of God. Then you look at back in the history when the world started, that every time God Almighty saw the cruelty on earth inflicted upon His creation, and in this case on the poor civilians, the newborn babies in the incubators burnt alive. And see some of the pictures. I can't show you the optics because maybe the YouTube policy will not let those pictures come up, and it would be a horrible thing to see newborn burnt and only see the skull charred there. You go back and look at the earth and look at their skulls when thousands and thousands years ago, that is at the time soon after Noah, peace be upon him, how the fire came, how the three colors of clouds appeared on the sky, and they asked them to choose one because they were the most powerful people on the world, much more powerful than the Romans, the British, than the American at the moment, the hegemony of United States of America, calling themselves as a power and challenging God, the Creator Almighty, who has all the power and created them. This person or a human, sent on this earth, made from the clay, and see how this clay is full of arrogance, full of pride, full of all the, I think, the ills. The greatest terrorist on earth is the United States of America. And with this, I will prove to you the inherent problems of the United States of America. No media, neither CNN, nor BBC, nor CBS, no one, Fox News, anyone will tell you this. And this is the most dishonesty you can see in journalism. This is called yellow journalism. And they are paid touts, and the Jews have infiltrated in every part of our life. They brought obscenity, they brought sexual perversion, adultery, homosexuality, and everything. I think they introduced. You can look back in from the last 200 years. It has always been the Jews. And why did they do it? You can see for yourself that why they did it, and how the 12 tribes disobeyed Prophet Moses, and they said, we cannot go and fight in Palestine. Now they claim that it's their land is Palestine. At that time they refused, and they were then left astray in the desert, and they kept on going into the desert, and they never could come out of that desert till they all vanished and died. Few of them were left.
Just watch this. This is America. This is the America that you will not see on Western media. If it were to be Africa, you will see this every day. Drug addiction, homelessness, mental illness is an epidemic right now in the US. Instead of them focusing on their own problems, they are in Congo killing our people. They are in Sudan. They are there helping Israel to wipe out Palestinians instead of taking care of their own citizens. They are using their taxpayers' money to create terrorist groups in different people's countries instead of focusing on their own problems. The almighty America. If this were to be in Africa, every day you will see it on Western media. How many times have you seen this kind of videos on Western media? Like I said earlier, let's just say this was in Africa. You will see it on the Western media every day. Because the only thing you will see on Western media about Africa are negative things. They will project it to the world as if we Africans, we live in caves. We sleep on treetops with animals. Meanwhile, their country is drowning. The level of homelessness in America right now is alarming. The level of drug abuse, the level of mental illness. But there they are using their taxpayers' money to cause genocide in Palestine. They are in Congo wiping out our people. They are in Sudan wiping out our people, and the Western media will not even talk about it. People are dying every day in Sudan and Congo, but the Western media will not talk about it. This is America. What do I expect from a country whose president freezes in the air? A country whose president is acting like a robot? What do I expect? You are no longer the city on the hill, America. The world is seeing everything and the world knows everything. Stop causing untold misery to the rest of the world. Stop dictating to the rest of the world how to run their show when you can barely govern yourselves. Let me know what you think about this video, and thank you for watching.
You cannot enter a discussion with an Israel defender without them immediately accusing you of being a racist if they disagree with you. Oh, you're an anti-Semite.
The red line for me is, this is my country. My birthright is free speech. God gave me that right. You cannot take it away. And if you're telling me what I'm allowed to say in my country, you're my enemy. Like, it's just kind of that simple. You can't tell me what to say or think, period, because I'm an American.
Exactly. Try and have an argument, even like a substantive civil argument, disagreement. Criticize Israel just a little bit and count down the number of seconds before you get accused of being motivated by bigotry and hatred. It'll be, seconds. And that's their only tactic, their go-to tactic. The minute you question, like, why is the U.S. financing Israel's military in its wars when it not only hurts our own country, but when millions of Israelis are having better standard of living than millions of Americans? You're a Jew hater, you hate, you have some kind of problem with Jews. So it's the same tactic there.
Do they say that to you?
Constantly. Being Jewish is not in any way, does not give you any kind of immunity from that accusation. Like,
I'm an American. Every American has the right to say exactly what he thinks at all times, period. Period. Like, I thought that was the whole point of the country.
The idea that Hamas is the obstacle is, of course, putting the truth upside down. And the Financial Times is just as stupid as can be in its British mentality about the Middle East. All they should be doing is writing editorials saying, we're sorry, we're sorry, we're sorry. The main point is to understand that bringing down Assad was a long-term Israel-U.S. aim. I can't tell you because on the one side, we've heard calls for peace by Trump and by Vance, the vice president-elect. On the other hand, we have a deep state which is...
My question to you is that when we read your column, we felt that Professor Sachs is a bit naive about this emergence of the Global South. Your response to that? Hello and welcome to another episode of India and Global Left. Today we have with us a very special guest, Professor Jeffrey Sachs. If you are new to our show, please smash that subscribe button. Also consider be a Patreon or a member to have that early access in either event. Do watch our shows and share your comments. Professor Sachs, welcome back to India and Global Left.
Happy New Year. Thank you for having me back.
I want to start with an update on Palestine. I recently had the occasion to interview Norman Finkelstein, and one of the things that he said, and it struck me, is that Gaza is no more. I wanted to have your reaction to that and share your update on what your thoughts are on Gaza.
Of course, we know that 45,000 are dead in Gaza, mostly women and children, overwhelmingly civilians, innocent people whose lives were cut short by Israel's brutality. We know that the infrastructure has been destroyed, and we know the purpose of the Israeli government, which is to ethnically cleanse Gaza and ultimately to incorporate Gaza and the West Bank and the Golan Heights, and it seems part of Syria, parts of Lebanon, into a greater Israel. So this is what Norman Finkelstein is referring to. The situation is catastrophic for the people of Gaza, and it is dire throughout the Middle East because the war not only has continued, it has expanded, and Israel is itching for more war. It would like to draw the United States into a war with Iran.
Are you Okay, my question is: a lot of people are now pessimistic about a reconstruction of Gaza. A lot of ideas are discussed about what should be done. Some of the options being an immediate ceasefire, a massive international aid for reconstruction. What's your way forward as far as stopping this genocide is concerned, and then following up?
The key to war is politics. Von Clausewitz is correct in the most famous assessment that war is a continuation of politics with other means. The politics in the case of the war in Gaza is the question of Palestinian political self-determination. This has always been the question. Will there be a state of Palestine alongside the state of Israel, or will Israel dominate all of the Palestinians and an increasing number of other people as well? The leaders of Israel, this regime, is an expansionist regime which views Greater Israel, so-called, meaning a territorial, large and expansionist Israel as its objective. And the denial of a Palestinian state is a fundamental part of the vision of this government. The question, therefore, is not who rebuilds the bricks and mortar that was just destroyed in Gaza. The core question is, what is the political outcome? And I continue to believe to this moment that the only viable political outcome, the only one that can produce peace, the only one that is consistent with international law, the only one that can bring an end to the expanding war, is a state of Palestine created according to the standards of international law, which means the borders of the 4th of June, 1967, the capital in East Jerusalem, control over the Islamic holy sites, and with security. This is feasible. It's basically one veto of the U.S. Away. The U.S. is the only blockade to Palestine becoming the 194th UN member state. And then, with a Palestine legally welcomed into the UN, the practical issues, of course, of security, peacekeeping forces, basic urgent reconstruction, and so forth, come to the fore. But they can't even be brought to the forefront without a political solution. There is an overwhelming global consensus on the two-state solution. The UN General Assembly routinely votes for this, at least 170 countries in favor, representing around 95% of the world population. And the opponents are basically the United States and Israel, usually with a smattering of Micronesia, Nauru, Papua New Guinea, maybe Paraguay and Argentina for particular reasons, but basically an overwhelming majority. The G20 has expressed its determination for the two-state solution. The BRICS countries expressed in the Kazan Declaration the determination for the two-state solution. The Arab League expressed in its Bahrain Declaration the two-state solution. It's everywhere, except it's blocked by the United States. So this is the main point. Israel, of course, it's against it. It's fundamentally, violently, virulently against it for absolutely unacceptable reasons, either because of a completely false narrative about Israel's security, or because of some, I think, absolutely wild claim that, well, we were given this land 2,900 years ago. It's ours, no matter what, no matter who lives there, no matter what. And this is essentially the situation we're in. One country blocks peace, and that's the United States. because Israel does not have a veto over this issue.
I wanted to ask you also about the internal politics. I know that's not our prime concern, but still, I was just curious what your thoughts are. The New York Times and the so-called liberals and the left take this position that it's Hamas that's the problem on Palestinian side, and it's Netanyahu that's the problem on the Israeli side. On the other hand, the Financial Times covered a detailed article called "What's Left of Hamas," and it might surprise a lot of people that what they say is that whatever minimally is left in terms of governance, whether it's about providing critical healthcare or even adjudicating legal matters or bringing in stolen mobile phones. It's Hamas-led organizations in Gaza that's still in operation. So I was just curious what your thoughts on Hamas are and what could be some of the representative organizations within the Palestinian movement. Also, just to end my long question is, we are seeing huge infighting in the occupied West Bank between the PA, the Palestinian Authority, and sections of Hamas. What are your thoughts on the internal politics?
The internal politics are not the key. The key is a political settlement, because if there were a political settlement, there would also be a solution to the internal politics. There would also be a Palestinian state constituted. It would not get external support for a war against Israel. Israel's security would actually be achieved in the context of a two-state solution. So what we're seeing is all the pathology that comes from in Israeli occupation, in Israeli ethnic cleansing, an Israeli genocidal set of actions by design to create this greater Israel. The rest, if I may say, is details. It's tragic details, but all solvable in the context of an overall political solution. You can't solve the political solution for Palestine intra-Palestinian. The problem is Israel. The problem is not intra-Palestinian. So this is a complete distraction. Hamas is a distraction. Hamas, to be a fighting force, depends on external funding. But in a political solution, that ends. There's peace. You get a UN support for a different kind of settlement. So the whole idea that Hamas is the obstacle is, of course, putting the truth upside down. The truth is, the obstacle is Israel doesn't want a state of Palestine, period. So clear. It's been true the whole history of Israel, but especially with the rise of Netanyahu's party in 1978, the Likud. The whole party's committed to having no state of Palestine, period. So all of the internal issues are things that people talk about to distract themselves. And by the way, on this, you can't believe a word of the British press. Because, look, Britain messed up the whole world. And one of the things that Britain messed up was the Middle East. And the Financial Times is just as stupid as can be in its British mentality about the Middle East. All they should be doing is writing editorials saying, we're sorry, we're sorry, we're sorry. Instead, they take ridiculous positions all over the place because the British Empire is a ridiculous nostalgia for them rather than, focusing on current real issues. I'm sorry to say it, but this is what we read in the English language press. We read the nostalgia of past empires or the delusions of current empires like the United States.
You mentioned the 1967 border, and I'm not sure if that's a very direct reference to the two-state solutions. Now
Yes.
People are describing, so there is one side that says that you cannot unravel 750,000 or a million settlements to talk about two state. So the solution has to be one state. And there is another side which says that even if it's a million settlers, amount of area that they occupy are not huge, and there are cartographic maps and other things that says that a two-state solution is still feasible. I wanted to have your response on these two line of arguments.
Well, they're both right. I'm not against a one-state solution. I'm not against a two-state solution. I am in favor of noting one basic point, that the Israeli settlements were known from the first moment to be illegal. They started at the end of the 1960s. I went to Israel the first time in 1972, and it was explained to me how Israel is, quote, putting facts on the ground. They knew this was illegal. So any excuse that, well, you can't have a Palestinian state now because, they're settlers, well, that was Israel's point. So we have to find a solution to that. Practically speaking, every one of those settlements from the first day was known to be illegal. This isn't some trick pulled on these settlers now. Oh, you're living in Palestine. They knew that. They knew they were living in occupied territories. They want to. That's the purpose of those settlements, is to ignore international law, to ignore UN Security Council Resolution 242, which was made in 1967, to say these are occupied territories and they're going to have to go back out of Israel's control. And so this is a real practical issue. There's no doubt about it. My own feeling is make two states. The Israeli settlers who have been living illegally in occupied lands, they can stay there for many, many years, maybe 10 years, maybe 20 years, who knows? But make a state of Palestine and then work on the practicalities to undo what was knowingly done by Israel with the purpose of subverting a state of Palestine.
Which is also a US war, and the total disregard for Palestinian life there. It seems to me there are parallels between the two wars.
Absolutely. By the way, direct parallels. Nobody counts the dead. Nobody in Washington. It's not even an issue, but they're trained. This is what's called sophistication. They never count the dead. But by the way, that goes through Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, it goes to Syria, it goes to Afghanistan, it goes to Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That's truly, utterly the American way, is you do not count the dead.
In my opinion, Gaza is a major turning point in world history just because of the awakening it's ushered in amongst the global population. Because we've had 11 months of genocide be live streamed on our phones. We've seen some of the most awful things we've ever seen. And yet we've looked as well to Washington and seen President Biden, who's a Democrat, who are meant to be the good guys, defend it all, arm it all, and ventriloquize Israeli propaganda. Now, for people who don't understand how the system works, which is most people, this has been a real sea change because they can't put those two contradictory things together. How can America say that it's for human rights, democracy, fairness, when the president is defending some of the most awful things we've ever seen? And do you think that the awakening that has been around the world about the reality of US power over Gaza has changed the view of the United States and its role in the world?
Everything about Gaza is grotesque, disgusting. It is a genocide. It is war crimes every day. But it's not so different from many other things that the U.S. has done. It's shocking because we see it, and we see TikTok feeds of, celebrating rabbis and celebrating IDF personnel and so forth, gloating as they blow up a hospital or blow up a university, or we have the accounts of torture. But I'm telling you, it's not different. Napalming the Vietnamese, carpet bombing North Korea, by the way, in 1951, 52. There were no cameras there, but it was mass carpet bombing. What we did in Cambodia and Laos. I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of these places post-war. Also to walk through Cambodia, and there are large places. When you go, no, we can't go there. There's still so much ordnance in the field. There's still unexploded mines and horrible things. And the U.S. still trying to collect debt from Cambodia 50 years later, after a debt taken on by a CIA-imposed government of Laos with an illegal bombing campaign of mass carpet bombing. So, and by the way, everything we know about Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which took a long time to come out, but where it was finally definitively established that the official line, which was that this was to bring the war to an end sooner, was a pile of crap. This was after the Japanese begged for to surrender. There was no reason to use the bomb except as a demonstration of American power and all the rest. And that's and to use two of them, and not to have a second thought after Hiroshima, but Nagasaki went ahead on its bureaucratic schedule a few days later. No, in this sense, Gaza is not different. It makes me sick. And it's something that, my kids are seeing vividly for the first time. But since now I've become, not only having lived through these other wars, but now have spent the last 20 years trying to understand all of this better. It's not qualitatively different, actually. It does not work properly right now. And the IMF and the World Bank are barriers to the solution at this point, not part of the solution. And one may say, well, duh, that's been true for a long time. But the real challenge is the IMF is at World Bank is at 18th and Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington. It's 2 blocks from the White House. The IMF is at 19th and Pennsylvania. Either these are international institutions for all, or they're U.S. institutions to protect U.S. hegemony. And they can't decide, actually. They've been under the thumb of the U.S. for so long. So my point is, we need fundamental global financial reform of the financial system to enable this massive achievement of convergence, which is completely within reach, but it needs financing. And either the BRICS are going to do it in an expanding BRICS, which is half the world, and it's nearly half the world economy with the continued expansion of the BRICS countries, if you count all those that were around the table in Kazan. Or we'll do it as a world united, which would be even better if it turns out the United States loses its craziness and starts agreeing to cooperate with the rest of the world. All I can say a little bit pessimistically on that remark is Britain lost its empire, 80 years ago, but it still has imperial nostalgia to an extent that is so perverse and weird. Maybe we shouldn't be so over-optimistic that the United States is going to get it right. But if it doesn't, at least the rest of the world can get it right.
Interesting. You started with investment, remaining very true to the Keynesian idea of looking at the world, but also refreshing that you draw out the priority areas, which Keynes, at least in his general theory, was not very much bothered about. I mean, he was more bothered about how to raise effective demand, because in the post-depression world, but you have outlined the priority areas of education, technology, and so on and so forth. The departing note, what are some of the countries that you think have done really well recently? People talk about post-reforms, China, Scandinavia. What are your what are 1 or 2 countries that you think have done well, relatively speaking?
Well, first of all, I think China over the last 40 years has been exemplary in its economic success. It's hard to imagine doing better than 10% per year rate of return over a 40-year period. It catapulted China to the front ranks of the world system. I'm, as I said, an India optimist. I'm an ASEAN optimist. I'm an Africa optimist going forward. I think the potential is everywhere. Getting organized to understand the potential, avoiding self-destruction through war, those are big challenges. But the economic potential of our time is absolutely enormous.
Dies hard. There's still some scum of the society from Eastern Europe, from West, from anywhere in the world. They have come and gathered in one place for God to destroy them. And this is the same land of Palestine where that in Ad or Hud al-Islam's time, and mentioned in the sacred book of Muslims, the Holy Quran, then how these people were arrogant, how they were the strongest people, how they were 80 feet tall, and they could just in their palm they could hand and crush your skull, and those 5 to 6 or 7 feet humans at the moment walking on this planet. This is how strong they were, and they were destroyed. The cloud they picked was the black one, as just you see on the skies of the Los Angeles at this moment, and New York at this moment, and Massachusetts at this moment. No matter what you say, it is not one person you caught a wrong person. It's the media's against trying to protect the actual evil. And the evil behind, you will find that the water in California, which was stopped, is owned by the Jews. That all those fire extinguishers were owned by the Jews. And the Jews knew about this thing because they are the evil brain behind this fire, because what they wanted to do is to just show you that to divert your and if you do not pay us for the war, if you do not obey to us, and then you see what we will do to you. And they did it, and they buy, and they have. This is why they sold their house in billions. They got loans from the banks. It's same just like 9/11, same like the assassination of Kennedy, just like in anywhere in the world, regime change or killing of Hezbollah's and Iranian leaders and Hamas leaders. They are ill. You have to get rid of them. If you don't get rid of them, then wait for the nature, and nature has started it, and you can see for yourself then what's going to happen now. I think very soon, maybe 2025 or maybe another year or so, you will see the complete disappearance of this illegitimate state. This Boer state has no respect for international law, doesn't care for hundreds of resolutions by the United Nations General Body and for two-state solutions, and one bloody devil, one evil person, one foul-smelling individual called Netanyahu. For the last, I think it's the 4th term this guy has prevailed upon this. Always, I think the extremists and other ones, Van Giver and his finance minister, they are the one who want to grab all of Palestine, Jerusalem, and even they have their eyes on Jordan, and they have eyes on Lebanon, and they have eyes on Egypt and Syria. And this, look at their greed. So I think that you can see that the greedy cow always falls on the fecal matter and eats the rot. So this is what I think the Jews are doing at the moment, and they are the cause of thing in the whole world. And America is blind. I think people are blind. They should stop paying the taxes. They should come out on the road and see for themselves. And I'm showing you what's the position now of the United States of America, which the American media will never show you, and nor would the West show you this thing. That's the problem. And how could you, out of $1 trillion budget of the total defense for the 52 states of United States of America, you're giving nearly half of that to Israel. And what for? This small tiny strip of this, and that again of the scum and dirt of the society. It's not you. It's not a part of you. It's not your state. Why on earth are you doing it? And how dare you get the money of the Muslims, of the Arabs, of the people who do not agree with you to go and kill babies and shoot them And I'm glad that now IDF soldiers are being hunted and arrested, and so should be Netanyahu, not be out free in there to do all the damage he's done to the world peace. He should be hanged from his neck till his body is decapitated. His neck along with his face comes out and his body falls there and decays and eaten up by dogs, vultures. And I think God will make an example of this. If this doesn't happen, then he'll be burnt into ashes, just you see that in Los Angeles, right? Happening now in 2025 January. We are all witnessing those black clouds. We are seeing that fire and that wind. Where did the wind come from? You see, so somebody is manipulating the weather, the temperature going above 48, and see the wind spreading the fire from from Los Angeles County to the other counties, and that is reaching from New York to Massachusetts, and it's soon going to spread in the whole of United States of America. Now I think with this I will just cut short this and then give you some evidence and show you how the world scholars think about it, how the Jewish intrigue and the greed and their dreams are, how they will destroy the world peace, and how bit by bit in the Middle East, how they feel that they want to expand, and at the expense of ethnic cleansing, at the expense of the blood of the innocent babies, women and children. And see for yourself and stop it. And I think the world has any morality, any humanity left in them. They will get up, rise, and any Jew they can pick up. And the bad Jews I'm talking about, the one extremist who doesn't want to live in peace, who don't want to have ceasefire, who doesn't want have soldiers killed, men and women going to these universities and colleges and having a normal life and family. And they spit on people, they spit on other religions. They want to get rid of that. And this wish of expansion back into colonialism has to be stopped. And look at that, those people who are sane, people who are good, people who are human, they do not want to tolerate them. So all those laws these people manage to create by their paid touts in Congress and Senate must be all repealed. It should be treated just like a normal state if it has to exist and be a part of the United Nations.
यूनिवर्सल टेलीविजन को सब्सक्राइब करना ना भूलें, उसके बाद बेल बटन पे क्लिक करें और अपने कमेंट्स के सेक्शन में अपने कीमती जो ख्यालात का इजहार ज़रूर